Hindu, Sumerian, Chinese, Abrahamic, Inca, Greek, Mayan, and many more religions state that man was born from the earth, albeit soil or clay. Gods seem to be able to inject their breath of life into the empty sculptures that they have created in earth, so that we could then become humans. But without the influence of a god, a sculpture of earthly material is just that, a lifeless replica of what we perceive ourselves to be. Although, we do like to solve problems, and when said problem becomes, the realization that our creations lack this so-called life, we use many types of powers to make our own life on many different forms throughout the years. An art now lost in time, for life can only be granted by the hand of the divine, and the hubris of mankind has never worked out in our favor. But we never learn. Ain't that right? Your accurate way of beating a VTuber, the Porcelain Maid. Listen, my boy, this is gonna be the second time I have to apologize in this series as of now, because I downplayed the situation once again. But I mean, in my defense, you see a porcelain maid, what's the first thing that you really think? Well, I'm just gonna push it down the stairs, right? That should be GG. But clearly, there is evidence of magic in the highest order, so we'll have to make a deep dive into it. Just to be sure, there is not much known as of the nature of the porcelain maid when it comes to its origins. The porcelain maid on itself, right? Just the body of the porcelain maid. And let me tell you something. The whole drowned nun thing, apparently it was non-canon, and that really punched me in the face. That really destroyed my day. So most of this video is just gonna be a speculation on what I think might be happening on that mansion. So like I always say, to defeat your enemy you must first know your enemy. So as a first we'll have to establish what the porcelain maid really is, and for that we'll be taking a look into Jewish folklore, Abrahamic religion, and some other things probably. And by watching this video you will agree on using this knowledge only if the subject on the video becomes a threat to humanity. If you fail to honor this contract, something very funny will happen near your pelvic area. Deal? Wonderful. So with that said, it is time to uncover the secrets of the porcelain maid. Right off the bat, porcelain maid is a golem, a type of golem, and I know what you're thinking. Whenever I say golem, you're probably thinking of this fee-fi-fo block of cheese that has a giant arm or feet, But listen, this is the definition of a golem. A man-made body without a soul, only awaiting for the command of its master. The prophet Jeremiah is said to be one of the first to be able to successfully create a golem, and that golem was humanoid. It is not known how he was able to create a golem, like making a sculpture come to life technically, but he did use the Sefer Yetzirah, the Jewish book of life. Now, here is the problem. The second the golem was brought to life, he hit him with the hardest quote of the century. God has made you in his image and in his shape and form, but now that you have created a man like him, people will say, there is no God in this world besides you. The second Jeremiah heard that, he game-ended the golem on the spot, on site, immediately. Now this is interesting, because this is the first time that we can see a golem talk in all of history basically, which is weird because golems don't talk, because they don't have a soul. Now it can be theorized that it was actually God possessing the golem, which would make sense in a way, taking outside omnipotence, omniscience and all of that. It is said that Jeremiah used the secret name of God for the golem to be created, So basically, God heard somebody call him by his full legal name, and he was all like, well, what is going on in here? He saw this and was all like, Jeremiah, buddy, what are you doing in here? So yeah, that was kind of about it. Yeah. After that, there have been other Jewish rabbis that have defied this and created more golems for different purposes, stating that perhaps the difference between the righteous and God is not so, it's not that much, right? We can do that. I mean, we're not doing nothing wrong. Speaking of doing nothing wrong, let me just say, with the case of the Porcelain maid, this would be the first case of a maid golem, actually. This is the case of Solomon ibn Gabriel, which is said to have made a golem that was also female. And there is also speculation of this golem, also serving the role of a lover, which makes me question also the intention behind the creation of the porcelain maid's body. But I guess it really kind of depends on how detailed the anatomy of his body is. And you know what? I mean, I don't think that is a question that will lead us anywhere. Unless the role and also the physical aspect of how a golem is created really depends on how, well, it was created, how it was sculptured. So let's talk about one of the most famous cases of golem activity. The Golem of Prague. This golem was a protector of the Jewish people, and its master was the Maharal of Prague, or Rabbi Jowol. We're talking almost 16th century, when the Jewish people of Poland were getting accused of using infant babies to practice dark magic, basically. They were getting executed, pursued, it was a bad time. Things were looking bad, so Rabbi Jowol met with the Holy Roman Emperor of that time, the Emperor Rudolf II, to basically say, hey yo, that's not cool. And since he was one of the most well-respected sages of Eastern Europe, his word meant something, alright? But the Maharal of Prague really didn't believe in the word of the Holy Roman Emperor, but because he had his good reasons, right? So then, that night, he enacted the Kabbalistic prayer, the Shelat Shalom, to kind of like, let's just say, ask God for answers in his sleep. So then legend says that he woke up in the next morning and just under his pillow he found the written instruction of God telling him to, well, something had to be done. And let's just say that that certain something had something to do with mud and clay on gigantic proportions. And that is how Joseph the Golem was born, the protector of the Jewish people of Prague. The Golem had superhuman strength, but it would mostly just keep an eye in the Jewish neighborhood, right? For anything sus, anything suspicious. But since he himself was kind of sus, since he was a golem, he would use like some human clothing to kind of like disguise himself as a Christian. And on every Friday, just right before the Jewish Sabbath, the golem would go to sleep. How does a golem go to sleep? I'm glad you asked. Kind of like how Dr. Doofenshmirtz does it. Golems usually have a kill switch. Remember how I said that for the golem to be alive you will have to use the secret name of God, the Shem HaMaphorash. Now, the way that usually works is that you have that placed under the golem's tongue. It can be like a parchment, I guess you can also engrave it, but it's usually like a little parchment with the Shem HaMaphorash under the golem's tongue, alright? So then you just kind of take that one out and the golem goes poof. There is another method in which basically you have to physically write the letters Aleph, Mem, Tap, which is Emet, that means truth, on the golem's forehead, and then the golem comes to life, right? So then if you erase the letter Aleph and you're left with only Mem and Taf, which is Met, that means dead, and then the golem dies. So that's another way of deactivating a golem, usually. So for Joseph to go to sleep and have some well-deserved rest in the Jewish Sabbath, Rabbi Lowy will then just remove the parchment under its tongue. And then Joseph would go to sleep. All was good for 10 years, until one day Rabbi Lowy forgot to take the parchment out of its tongue right before the Jewish Sabbath. So then on that Saturday, when Joseph was still awake, Well, let's just say that he went on a rampage. And we're talking, oh, that's bad type of rampage. We're talking destroying buildings type of rampage. When Rabbi Lowy realized what he had done, well, he somehow was able to corner the golem and take the parchment out. And when he did so, the golem fell and, well, it died. For good, it died for good. Why did this happen exactly? Well, we can theorize that it probably had something to do with committing a sin against its creator, its original creator, God. Since working on a Jewish Sabbath is considered a sin, then perhaps that had something to do with it. That is important to know. Even though a golem protects its master and basically its master's command will be everything for a golem, apparently, it cannot go against the rules of the power that said master is using in order to make the golem come to life. You might be thinking, why am I telling you all of this? But listen, there is something that is really bugging me. That is the fact that for one to be able to create a golem, you need a very deep understanding of Kabbalistic magic, which on itself is already reserved for only the most devoted and close to the Lord. Actually, even more than just that, since the rituals needed to create a golem are said to be lost. Even if we look outside of Jewish tradition, and even though the golem creating stuff is mostly found inside the ritualistic folklore, the process of creating a living servant throughout any type of alchemical or religious practice is a really big deal. So, who made the porcelain maid? How? And why make its body out of porcelain? There are more reasons as to why a golem is typically made out of clay. Scientifically speaking, clay is made out of a very tiny crystal, or well, crystals, and they can self-replicate, under the right conditions of course, and these crystals act like if they had their own ecosystem per se, by passing what could only be described as genetical traits in the same way that an animal would evolve with the passing of the millennia by adapting thanks to a random mutation from an ancestor. Clay can also evolve in a way. And with mutations and evolutionary potential, well, let's just say that perhaps there is a reason as to why the preferred material of construction of the divine is clay. Yet, whoever created the porcelain maid created the porcelain made out of porcelain. So, either that person is pretty dumb or a genius, since I can't really say how hard it will be to make a golem out of porcelain, so I mean, I don't know. Let's look at what we truly do know. We can see this very interesting picture. In here we can see the body of the porcelain maid in more typical golem-esque fashion, I will dare say. Emotionless, probably doesn't have a lot to say, if anything at all, because you know what, they don't talk. Oh yeah, they don't talk at all. And also a child. Who is this child? I don't know yet. The body of the porcelain maid seems to have been abandoned, the same way with the mansion, right? The place looks rough. An abandoned golem without its master, without its purpose, without a soul. Oh, what will the golem do? While you think about that, let's take a look into the life of Jowol. Or, well, more so, what is going on around Jowol. Some people missing, Jowol doesn't seem to care at all. And you know what? Fair enough. Until, well, something happens to him. We don't know exactly what. We just know that somehow he found himself waking up in the body of the porcelain maid. We know that he was not that far away from the porcelain maid since he was able to take all of his stuff out of his apartment and take it into the mansion. So, I mean, yeah, I think what is most concerning is the, well, I mean, you know, the what the hell just happened here? Is Jowol the chosen one? Was he special? I don't think so. He certainly doesn't look like it. Or rather, didn't look like it, because now Jowol is the porcelain maid. Somehow, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, why? Let's not focus on the whys and more so on the hows, because if not, I'm just gonna lose my mind. Listen, there aren't many things that can just take your soul out of your body before even killing you. And why am I saying that he's not dead yet, Jowol? Well, because the porcelain maid said that he went back to his apartment to take out all of his streaming devices and all that, and if he was dead, I would imagine that there will be like a crime scene there and he will be able to kind of like see his own corpse, but he didn't, so we will just assume that Jowol is out there. And why? Well, now that's interesting, right? That's a little bit of a problem, because if there is no corpse, what does that tell us? That means that whatever was inside the porcelain maid is now inside of the body of Jowol, or maybe Jowol was just not lucky that day, right? And maybe something completely unrelated just took his soul out, and then that creature person got into the body of Jowol, but then the soul of Jowol just so happened, out of pure coincidence, you know, his soul just found the body of the porcelain maid and then inhabited that vessel, and then, let me tell you a secret. I don't know. Listen, if we use the first case scenario, right? If there was something originally in the body of the porcelain maid, that golem, that got out and then maybe supplanted the body of Jowol, there are two explanations, at least from me. One, complete mystery, I got no idea. The second one, the essence of the Shemhemeferash got out, and now that's bad. Ooh, that's bad. Now, like you probably remember, the Shemhemeferash in this case, in this context, can be used to say the hidden name of God. But now, we live in a world with many types of gods, so this can be the essence of an unknown god, unknown for me at the very least. Then why? I said I was not gonna ask the whys, but I just have to. Why would a deity, or perhaps a lesser deity, want to escape by switching bodies between the vessel of the porcelain maid and this random guy? First explanation, I got no idea. Second explanation, perhaps this lesser deity or whatever this entity is cannot manifest itself in the physical plane of existence unless it has a vessel, and perhaps it needed another vessel to camouflage itself against someone, because perhaps this entity wants revenge. That would kind of explain the modus operandi behind the actions that led to Jowol becoming the porcelain maid in the first place, but that really does leave me a question. What type of deity or lesser deity would have this type of restraint to interact with us in the first place? Maybe the Shemhemeferash is not what got out. Maybe there was another thing that got inside of the porcelain maid's golem before Jowol. Maybe it was intentional. Maybe whoever created the body of the porcelain maid used the Shemhemeferash to bound this another soul into the golem, making the union possible on the first place. And perhaps the reason as to why the porcelain maid looks so emotionless in this picture is not because we are only looking at the golem, but we are actually looking at the person that was made to be just like a golem. Emotionless, unable to speak, only made to follow orders. Hopeless. I guess that could explain the wanting to get revenge part, but hey, for all we know, they were actually best friends, and just after taking this picture, they got an ice cream together. I don't know. Call me crazy, but what if the porcelain maid already killed everybody and that is why the mansion is abandoned? I mean, doesn't really explain anything else. Definitely doesn't help, but hey, food for thought. I would really like to know if people stopped going missing after Jowol got into the body of the porcelain maid, because if not, that would kind of reinforce the theory that perhaps it was just somehow a little bit of a coincidence that he ended up getting into that porcelain body, meaning that it was not the intended result, and whatever is snatching people's souls away is still doing it because it hasn't completed its purpose or whatever. Cult activity probably, most likely. But then if it did stop, that would mean that what happened was the intended result, and all of the people that went missing because they tried to get into the body of the porcelain maid and got lost along the way, or who knows, maybe they weren't worthy. You might think that perhaps all the people that went missing just got into the body of another type of golem, another mannequin. I just don't think that's the case, because I mean, come on. You wake up out of nowhere, and now you are in the body of a construct of a human self. You're now a missing person, and you're telling me that you wouldn't report it to the authorities? You're telling me that the media wouldn't know about it? You're telling me that not even one person tried to let the world know what just happened? Now that I think about it, technically speaking, Jowol did, right? Huh. Doesn't count, he's a psychopath. First thing he does once he loses his whole body, his whole self, his whole face, his whole entire identity, going back to gaming, going back to streaming. Holy moly, that guy is insane, needs to be locked up. Point still stands. As far as we know, there hasn't been any other type of construct, porcelain maid, or any other type of mannequin roaming around the earth that has made itself apparent. So for me, they do not exist. Hoo-hoo, I'm finished. We don't know much. I truly think that the key to understand everything, and also the key to find the body of Jowol now being inhabited by who knows what, is to find the original creator of the porcelain maid. Whatever it is that took the soul of Jowol out of its body clearly knows the porcelain maid, clearly knows the nature of whatever is going on in that mansion. I mean, the thing stalked Jowol in the body of the porcelain maid already for like an entire day without him even noticing, so I mean, yeah, he does know something that we don't. If that thing is the essence of the Shem HaMephorash, if that thing is only a spirit that got bound with the Shem HaMephorash, well, that's a nasty looking spirit, I will tell you that much. Is the relation between this thing and the porcelain maid a one-on-one direct thing where the whatever this is trying to get something from the porcelain maid, perhaps trying to find the location of its original maker, or maybe they are opposing forces? And like I said, perhaps the soul of Jowol getting into the body of the porcelain maid was not intentional, and the reason as to why the creature seems to have such an interest into the porcelain maid once it comes to life again is because the creature now realizes that he f***ed up, and now he reanimated the perhaps protector of what this family once was. And this creature right here is actually a generational curse that is battling against the porcelain maid, who is the protector of kind of like the creed from this whole entire mansion or whatever, the family, the ancestors and all of that. And now the generational curse is trying to absolutely obliterate whatever is left of these people, right? The Lucius J. Merriweather Miniature Jr. right there. What a guy. So yeah, there is also the idea that perhaps this creature has some sort of vendetta against the family of the porcelain maid, or will at the very least the original porcelain maid, and the porcelain maid was a golem constructed by maybe an ancestor of this family, made to protect them against whatever this is. I think that's a pretty good theory, and why didn't I say this any sooner? Well, I mean, I cannot be giving you my answers, and this is still a theory. I mean, it can be a lot of things. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe whatever I said before was the right one. I mean, maybe I'm right on the money, maybe I'm not. Make your own conclusions, we don't know yet. And that is why I told you not to focus too much on the whys. But one way or the other, I am convinced that once we find the original family of this mansion, we will understand a lot about the true nature of the porcelain maid and whatever this thing is. And if you're speaking my language, then yeah, I'm talking about using them as bait. But what if the porcelain maid doesn't allow us to commit an atrocity in the name of the greater good? then go for the head. Remember how I told you that clay was a very good material to make golems? Well, Porcelain Maid is a faulty golem. The Porcelain Maid cannot regenerate, but golems made out of clay can regenerate. You remember how the Rabbi Lowy used to put the Golem of Prague to sleep? The Porcelain Maid doesn't have any sort of inscription on its forehead, so then the Shem HaMephorash must be under its tongue. A little bit of a confirmation for that is the fact that he can replace all of the parts of his body except the head. That is the core. And because he cannot regenerate and because he cannot replace his head, then a blow to the head, it's bad news. Ever notice that crack? I don't know if the Porcelain Maid kept any of the abilities that it had before Jowol took over. But one thing that I do know for once on this godforsaken episode is that we need to find that family, whether he likes it or not. Intentional or not, I don't know if they're good, I don't know if they are bad. People are dying, maybe even just because of their mere existence, but something has to be done. But clearly they don't want to be found, and clearly they are not gonna appreciate any visitors trying to take away their magical thingies. Ain't that right? The Porcelain Maid is older than the mansion itself, and that is information coming straight from the source. Hi Jowol, I'm gonna kill your creator's grandchild. So for all we know, the original creator might be long gone. But they still have the family, and that family probably still has all of that secret knowledge in their library or in their little minds. So if we do find them, expect resistance, expect a lot of angry golems. Big golems. I'm talking real golems, not these Porcelain Maid right here. Turns out he's overpowered, kills me in 3 seconds, pieces on my grave. Huh. But enough japping. Listen, if we do find this golem lower family, and we find resistance, this is what you're going to do. Bullets might not work. Allegedly, a soldier from that boy with a mustache tried it once against the Golem of Prague. It did not go well. Whether it's against the Porcelain Maid or any sort of golem, taking the Shem HaMephorash from their construct is what makes the real damage. Instant death. And if it turns out the family was protecting everybody from this shadowy creature and now it's gonna destroy the world or whatever, then we kill the shadowy creature. We kill everybody! That's what they get for being so secretive! What will happen with Jowol if we do that? I don't know. I guess it really depends. Is the shadowy creature the essence of the Shem HaMephorash that was used on his body? If so, he's gone. If not, hey, a lot of people think too much into the problem itself, right? I mean, you know what I always say? Take the problem head on. Kill everything that becomes a problem right afterwards. And then enjoy the peace. I'm sure that even if Jowol dies because of whatever we're gonna do on that whatever, yeah, he will gladly sacrifice himself in the name of the greater good, I'm sure. In the meantime, if you happen to have any information that may help track and find this family so that we can then free Jowol from his earthly shackles, you know the call.